I am ink. I don't often make theory videos on games other than FNAF. The only time I've done that is when Poppy Playtime Chapter 2 came out. However, shortly after Poppy Playtime Chapter 2 came out, I decided to play Bendy in the Ink Machine for the first time, because many people compared Poppy to Bendy, so I wanted to see myself how Bendy was. And I really enjoyed it, so when Bendy and the Dark Revival was announced as coming out November 15th, I was excited. I knew a little bit about the lore, knew the basics for the most part, but not like too much, so I was excited to play the new game. Fast forward about 2 weeks, the game came out, and I streamed it twice, playing through the entire game, and I turned those streams into videos. But during my playthrough of the game, I found that a lot more lore was revealed, so in this video I want to go over everything that the Ink Machine actually does, and how the story of the games is now affected by it. I should probably mention that I have not yet read the Bendy books, but I will soon, so if I got something wrong which is explained in the books, forgive me and just correct me in the comments. I really hope you guys like this video, as I will be making more theories on other games like Poppy Playtime Chapter 3 when it comes out, and possibly Hello Neighbor 2 when it comes out in under 2 weeks. So I do hope you guys like that I'm branching out a bit with theories, because I'll be doing it more in the future. Before we get into the theory though, speaking of Hello Neighbor 2, I actually pre-ordered the deluxe version, which grants me with DLC locations and also grants me the game 5 days early, so because of that, I will be streaming the game on December 1st. But anyway, without further ado, let's talk about the lore of Bendy and the Dark Revival. In Bendy and the Dark Revival, we play as a girl named Audrey who works at Archgate Pictures. Archgate Pictures is a company owned by Nathan Arch, who had been getting bored of his current business and wanted to do something new, and decided to take ownership of the Bendy characters following the death of Joey Drew in 1971. Audrey is an artist, and the game begins with her about to head into a long night of work and wanting coffee. On her way down, the janitor, who is also Nathan Arch's son, Wilson, steps into the elevator, acting really creepy only for the elevator to malfunction. Audrey has to help Wilson turn on the power, but secretly Wilson was getting her to turn on the Ink Machine in the same way that Henry does in Chapter 1 of Bendy and the Ink Machine. Wilson tells Audrey that we have a purpose, and then says that they are both dying here. Then he grabs Audrey and throws them both into the ink that has been leaking from the Ink Machine and flooding into the room.
Come find me, and I'll show you your purpose. I'll show you the truth.
This can't be real.
And now, we die.
What are you doing?
What the hell? Holy crap. Audrey wakes up in Joey Drew Studios, the art style from the first game back, and not coincidentally. Audrey meets up with Allison Angel, who tells her to try to get up to higher levels of the studio and to avoid the Ink Demon at all costs. Audrey meets a couple of friends along the way, including an ink version of the cartoon Bendy, who is just so adorable that I had to say that approximately 5,000 times. He's so cute. he's so cute. Let's go. Oh, he's so cute. He's so cute. He's so cute. I'm never going to hurt him. He's so cute. I've said he's cute like 50 times, but I will not stop saying it. He's freaking adorable. However, over time, we find that there are people here named the Keepers, who Wilson created to fend off against the Ink Demon and restore order. So basically, Wilson is Kang and the Keepers are the TVA. Oh, and also there's an ink version of Joey Drew, who reveals what the Ink Machine actually does. Audrey meets Henry, who tells her about the end reel.
You must be real lost to be asking me for help.
I'm just looking for
Wait!
about the keepers.
I recognize that voice.
The cycle. Anything could help.
What's your name?
Audrey,
Wait a second.
what's yours?
I recognize that voice.
Honestly, I've almost forgotten. My name is Henry.
Yeah! Wilson tries to convince Audrey that he's a good guy. Twisted Alice Angel gives us a puzzle based on FNAF. Allison and Tom save Audrey's life. Hey, pet him? Aww. And Audrey meets back up with Wilson. Wilson reveals that he has a plan to create a monster even more powerful than the Ink Demon that could kill it, but could also be controlled, and that Audrey will be killed and reborn as her spirit would power the monster. However, Audrey rejects this offer, pushes Wilson into the machine, turning him into the monster. Then there's a really cool boss fight, but at the end, Wilson's monster eats Audrey's legs, leaving her powerless when the Ink Demon comes, destroys the monster, and merges with Audrey. Ink Joey shows up and tends to Audrey, but the Ink Demon kills this version of Joey, prompting Audrey to fight back, fight for control, grabbing the end reel from Joey, and with the help of all the friends she made throughout the game, makes it to a projector and plays the end. Oh yeah, and it's also revealed that Audrey is actually Joey's daughter made of ink. For those of you who have played the game or seen playthroughs, you know that I skipped over some stuff, and that's because the stuff I didn't talk about here is necessary for me to discuss for the theory. At the end of Bendy and the Ink Machine, it's revealed that Henry is trapped in a time loop he was sent into by Joey. But the interesting thing is that Joey actually has the Ink Machine inside his house.
I won't go in your closet, that's a bit weird.
Henry.
I can see it! The ink machine!
In Chapter 3 of Bendy and the Dark Revival, Joey tells Audrey that this entire world is a cycle, not just for Henry, but the entire Bendy world.
Joey, what is this place? This studio? These monsters? Am I dreaming?
It's a cycle, Audrey. An ink-stained nightmare, forever stuck on repeat.
Do you mean that literally? In Chapter 4, Joey explains the full story of how this world came to be. Your mother! Joey created the Ink Machine as a way of trapping Henry in eternal torment as revenge for him leaving Joey Drew Studios. It was meant to be a cycle of torment as a form of revenge, but there's also the rest of the cartoon characters. How did they get there? If a person interacts with the Ink Machine, it turns them into a cartoon character, but not one in the real world. It recreates humans as the cartoon characters in the cartoon world. One of the things that made Bendy popular in the first place was its very unique art style, so it made me very curious to find that Archgate Pictures doesn't have this art style while the rest of the game does. I was curious about this until it was revealed at the beginning of Chapter 5, or the end of Chapter 4 is unclear. Wilson tells Audrey that none of this makes sense, including an example of drawn walls.
Open your eyes and look around you. None of this makes sense.
True.
Drawn walls, nightmarish creatures.
Hold up, the walls being literal art is canon? What? The walls in universe are literally drawn. But how did Henry end up in the cartoon world? There are two different introductions to Joey Drew Studios for Henry. The first is the one we see at the beginning of the game, where we see Joey has written a letter to Henry telling him to go to the studio. However, this doesn't explain how Henry came into contact with the ink. The ink machine has to be turned on and you must interact with the ink in order to be sent into the cartoon world. And while it is kind of possible that Henry had to do turn on the ink machine like Audrey did, the circumstances during which Audrey had to do it were very specific in a way that it seems unlikely that Henry would have gone through that. Plus, if that were the case, wouldn't we have seen it? Wouldn't we have played through it? Probably. But remember how I mentioned that the ink machine is in Henry's house? In that scene at the end of Bendy and the Ink Machine, Joey tells Henry to
Come visit the old workshop. There's something I need to show you.
All right, Joey. I'm here. Let's see if we can find what you wanted me to see.
That's exactly what the letter said from the beginning of the game, but this is at the end of the game, and the difference is that that was a letter, and this is Joey himself showing it to Henry, and Henry ends up in the studio right from the apartment. This could just be a nod to this being like the restarting of the cycle, but it could also be an indicator of how Henry got into the cartoon world in the first place. The ink machine is what sends Henry to the cartoon world, and it's in Joey's house. Henry is in Joey's house 1 second, and in Joey Drew Studios the next. I think this shows us that the ending of Bendy 1 is actually how Henry made it into the cartoon world. Joey invited him to his house, and Henry came, and then Joey turned on the ink machine, sending Henry into this place. But there's also the fact that Joey's an old man at that point, and that would logically mean that Joey has already created Audrey, who is being made of ink, but living in the real world as a human. And creating Audrey is what led to Joey becoming a good guy. So it would be kind of weird for Joey to have already been an old man by the time he put Henry into the ink dimension. So I'm not quite sure, those are just my thoughts on it. It could possibly be a representation of how long Henry has been trapped in here. Maybe it's been years. Maybe Joey was actually pretty young when Henry was first sent into the ink machine, but Henry was old by the time that we play the game because it's been a long time. I don't know. It could be one way, it could be the other. I don't know. Speaking of Audrey, though, the way that she got into the ink dimension was very interesting because it was through the items of the pedestals, the same items and same function as in Chapter 1 of Bendy and the Ink Machine. You turn on the ink machine in the same way. Joey tells us in Chapter 3 that the ink dimension runs in parallel with the real world, meaning everything, all the buildings in the real world, everything that exists in the real world, exists in the cartoon world. It's just darker and drawn. The Joey Drew Studios building could have actually been turned into the Archgate Pictures building. It would align with how the ink machine being turned on works within both games. It does make a lot of sense, however that's just mild speculation and not confirmed or anything. But what is interesting is that at the end of the game, Audrey and the Ink Demon combine together. From the end of Chapter 1 to the middle of Chapter 4, we are trying to help the small Ink Bendy, the one looking more cartoon accurate to Bendy. However, mid-Chapter 4, it is revealed that that was actually the Ink Demon. Wilson has told everyone that he had killed the Ink Demon, but that wasn't possible because the Ink Demon was too powerful, so all he did was imprison him in a smaller body, Bendy. But somehow the Ink Demon was freed, as Wilson states in Chapter 4 or 5, whatever that was on the train. Until after we meet Bendy for the first time. That's when he's no longer trapped. As soon as we meet him, we open up the cage that he was trapped in, letting him out of this room. But Audrey also accidentally uses her powers on him. This could have triggered the Ink Demon's powers returning, as right after we meet Bendy and use our powers on him is when the Ink Demon appears, starts speaking to us, and then attacks us. But during the ending of the game, Bendy is seen in the real world along with Audrey. Remember how Audrey and the Ink Demon merged? Audrey being revived and brought back into the real world by resetting the cycle means that the Ink Demon has to be brought into the real world along with her because they shared a body. But because they were split back up into two bodies, the Ink Demon is once again in the Bendy body, no longer the Ink Demon because, I mean, he's in the smaller body because there's less ink available. I mean, this is back in the real world. There's no ink machine to fuel anything, and they're no longer in the other dimension where the whole world is made of ink, you know what I mean? It's just Bendy now. He's no longer the Ink Demon. This is very interesting as it could set up a sequel where the ink beings get out into the world, but the fact that the Ink Demon is brought into the real world and is no longer a part of the cycle means that all the people inside could actually live a peaceful life. But what about Henry's experiences itself? It's clear that people retain memories from the previous cycles as Henry remembers the end and Allison vaguely remembers the way that she killed Twisted Alice in the past. But at what point in the cycle was Henry captured by the TVA? In the area where we meet Henry, we can also find that Sammy is in a case just like the one Henry's in. Is that... It's Sammy! But Sammy died during Chapter 5 of Bendy and the Ink Machine. That means that Henry was taken at some point in the cycle before Chapter 5, but Twisted Alice is also alive at this point, meaning that it's before the end of Chapter 4. In that case, where is Buddy Boris? Is he Brute Boris already? Well, there's actually an Easter egg where behind the scenes you can actually find Buddy Boris. He isn't Brute Boris by this point.
But what's interesting is that up ahead there's actually a Boris. So as we climb up these handholds, there's a switch off to our right that we need to hit, but there's a door off to our left, and behind that door is Boris. Now, if we move the character behind this door before we open it, we can actually just walk through Boris. He will not respond to us, and we can't do anything. But the second we pull this switch, Boris will start walking, and he walks around this corner, and he will just vanish.
But in that same area where we meet Henry, there's a vent we can go off through, and at the end of that vent is a huge human head. This is Bertram Piedmont, the amusement park ride boss from Chapter 4 of Bendy and the Ink Machine. Once we beat him, he is closed off back into the ride. This means that Henry had to have been taken by the TVA after the Piedmont boss fight because he was trapped in, or not really trapped, but he was like inside the amusement park ride the entire time until we actually beat him, and then he's injured or whatever, and it could be that the keepers took him from there. Kang creates the TVA to capture the Ink Demon and any cycle breakers like Henry before Twisted Alice is able to make Brute Boris, leading to a chain of events preventing Brute Boris from being created and leading to Kang bringing Audrey in, and that's how the story of Bendy and the Dark Revival came to be. But anyways, guys, that's everything I wanted to talk about for this video. Let me know if there's anything I missed or if there's any theories you have about this game. Leave a like and subscribe if you want to, and if you enjoyed the video, of course. But for now, I'll see you all in the next video. Bye, guys!